We're live. I think I might be slightly electrocuting myself with this microphone. I don't know why. I guess what I shouldn't do is keep poking it to see if it keeps buzzing. This is the DLS Stars Day 2 draft show. We're going to recap for the next hour everything that's happened so far. Stars still have a pick to go in the 7th round, but they've gone rounds 2 through 6, and we'll break it down with Sean. Sam is in Frisco. We'll talk to him a little bit. Luds and I will talk coaching. We got a little bit of sound from Jim Nill. Maybe there's something there. Let's talk about it. Day 2 of the draft right now on DLS. And I felt that little like electricity, not like a strong one, but like a the DLS Stars Draft Show. The DLS Stars 2025 NHL Draft coverage is powered by Empire Today. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. DLS listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard right. A $350 discount with code DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DLLS for full details. Before we get to today's Day 2 Draft Show, we have to remind you about the $36 Die Hard Make Your Move sale. Running right now through at least the 4th of July, maybe longer, you never know. But don't wait to capitalize on, of course, the NBA and the NHL drafts, which are wrapping up. NBA's draft is done. NHL draft ends in about 10, 15, 20 minutes or so as they get through round 7. And, of course, free agency for both on the horizon. Check out alldlls.com/intro to get the best Die Hard first-year subscription price that you can possibly get for just $36. All right, welcome inside the Stars Lounge studio. You can see there's only 2 of us in studio. It's Craig Ludwig. I'm Owen Newkirk. Our producer, Elijah Smith, is back at the controls, who probably, thankfully, did not do 4.5 hours of Day 1 draft coverage with us, which is why he's probably not in a more foul mood. He's in a good mood. It's nice to have Elijah here. And Sean Shapiro is here for now. He may have to leave because he's being pulled like a marionette in multiple different places. Sam Nestler might join us in time or not. We honestly don't know because who can say what Sam is doing? So, Sean, let's start with you. Round 7 is underway. The Stars finally had some picks. Let's go right through it, pick by pick, and what the Dallas Stars have done thus far with, and they, of course, didn't have a first-round pick last night. They also didn't have a second, but they went in the 94th pick, Cameron Schmidt out of the Vancouver Giants WHL team. What can you tell us about this 5'7" and a quarter, 165-pound young man?
Yeah, so Cameron Schmidt's the big one to talk about today. For a team picking when Dallas is picking 94th overall, don't have much other value to really, you don't have with how late, there's not really much you can. So this is a high upside swing. One of the best skaters in the draft, one of the best shots in the draft. You combine those, and it's the reason he scored 40 goals in 60 games this year. Like, he's one of the best pure goal scorers in this draft class. He also happens to be 5'7" and 160 pounds when soaking wet. So that's why is available this late. It was available this late going into round 3. We had over at Elite Prospects, we go through and we do our scouts poll where we have a team of about 15 scouts, and Schmidt actually was voted our fastest skater and best shot in the draft of this entire thing. So low, one of those where he drops because of his size, but a type of high upside swing on the skill, and someone who scores 40 goals in 60 games at no matter what level, you're definitely going to be happy with that. And this is the type of pick you'd like to see Dallas take at pick number 3. And good value by Jim Nill and the Stars here and Joe McDonnell, and this is one where 3, 4, or 5 years from now, it could pay off nicely with how he kind of grows into the pro game. So I like the Schmidt pick a lot, and that's the thing that that's the one I would focus on the most at a day two. That's just the reality of when you have as few assets to pick as the Stars do. If you're making that type of swing that looks like a win, I'm happy with that one.
We're going to say hello to Sam Nestler, who is in Frisco, just so to make sure that people know that Sam is here. Hi, Sam. But I actually have a follow-up for Sean.
So keep your mouth shut, Sam.
Yeah, don't talk. A diminutive Western Hockey League score with speed. Is this not going to be the Dallas Stars fans looking at this and asking about another version of Logan Stankoven?
Yeah, and I think there's definitely some parallels you can draw there. Now, Logan Stankoven is a better player. I think that's one thing. There's a reason Logan Stankoven went in the second round and where he went, and so it's to kind of make the exact comp is not extremely fair to him. Logan Stankoven is also a little bit more of a playmaker that creates for others a little bit more. Schmidt is more of a shooter, and that's not a bad thing. It's just there's the size is going to cause some similarities. Our player comp over at Elite Prospects was a turbocharged Alex DeBrincat. That was the terminology that some of our scouts used on that one. So I don't know about the exact like for like Logan Stankoven replacement, because I think he's not going to be I think there's a little bit more time that needs to grow into this too, because Logan Stankoven, as we talked about quite a bit on this show, and we saw, like, Logan Stankoven was more of a tank in a small body. He used his center of gravity better. He was someone who he was someone who was hard to knock off the puck. Schmidt is still 5'7" and 160 pounds. If he uses his skating, he uses his speed to get around. He doesn't have that base that Stankoven had at this time. So you're not crazy to compare the two, but I also think you have to be fair to remember that this is a guy going number 94 as opposed to a guy who many teams thought would have gone first round in most drafts with Stankoven.
When you get to this point, Sean, and we were talking about this with your Elite Prospects colleague Cam Robinson last night, when you're approaching 100 picks in, now it was still third round, and there are, you and I have had this conversation on the show recently about third round. It's still pretty good rates of return on players as becoming NHL regulars, meaning playing more than 100 NHL games in a career, 200 plus, that kind of thing. Could be 400, who knows? But when you're at this stage, Cam said this last night, you're looking for who you think might be the best available, not a specific need. Is that fit with how the Stars drafted this pick?
Yeah, I think that fits. Honestly, that fits both the third round pick Cameron Schmidt and then the fourth rounder as well in Brandon Gorzinski. Like, I think there's good kind of you went off the top of your list there, and obviously every team is going to have a different list, and what public lists vary, so we don't know exactly where on what the Stars intel completely looked like. But I think the Stars did that here with especially in those round 3 and 4 draft picks, where I think you're looking at one player who in Schmidt he's going to be a scorer at the AHL level for sure, with his size and with his speed and his shot, and it's going to be, can he find a way to create that space in the NHL? That's going to be the big question. And then you got another guy in Gorzinski who is has a chance to be. He's going to be a bottom 6 NHLer if he makes it. But just call it what it is. He's going to be a third or fourth line left winger. Understands the game pretty well. Has a pretty strong motor. Kind of goes and does all the right things. But I think the Stars did both those things with the position they had. So I can't really criticize that. And then I'm a big believer that honestly after round 4 the draft is just a crapshoot, really. So yes, they took some players in round 5 and 6 that we can talk about, but really you have to show me the value in round 3 and 4 like they attacked, and I'm happy with that.
Sam, you're at the Comerica Center, sort of staking out. Well, tell everybody you're in Frisco. What are you waiting for up there today?
Yes, I want to let everyone know I had a beautiful background with the Dallas Stars logo and everything. I was in the big meeting room, and then I got kicked out and pushed into the kitchen. So now I'm in the kitchen in Frisco here, waiting for the final round to end, and then we're going to speak to Jim Nill a little bit about the draft, ask him some other questions and things like that. So a few of us here, along with Hikes, who we got to hear from last night, just waiting on that. But it's fun. It's not quite the marathon that we were doing last night, being on camera the whole time. So that's a nice little relaxation from that.
Lutz, what's your reaction to that first pick, the Cameron Schmidt for the Stars, when you hear that while he's not of large stature, he has the speed and he has the shot that the guys that Sean and the other guys that do prospect rating believe can develop into NHL talent?
Well, it sounds like it's a guy later down the draft that they believe in those kind of players, and they've had success and likes the way that some of those players talking. And it's funny when you had just mentioned about players playing, how many games they're going to play. I was listening to is it Shane Malloy? I'm sure you're familiar with him, right, Sean? He was talking this morning that
yes,
picks 23 through 32. In other words, at the end of the first round, those players, there's 10% of those players that will play 200 games in the NHL.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you, I don't know how exact that is, but it's basically saying as you would get whittled down, you're not really sure what you're going to get. And it's changed.
And we were talking about this with Cam Robinson last night. And Sean and I have had this conversation. We've talked about it with Jenks, I want to say a year or two ago, of, hey, we've noticed that, Jamie Benn came in the league around 09-10. He was drafted prior to that. Going back to then, you're still finding holes in scouting. If you fast forward 10 years to within the last 5, there's a lot fewer of those scouting holes. You're not seeing those guys later in the later rounds.
I think you have to realize you're talking about 18 and 19
I know.
Kids, Yeah. And to me, again, I'm not really anybody to give any information about what all goes into this stuff, and I don't really care what players do in the combine as much. I know that tells you, because they're all in great shape for the most part now. It's what's between the ears, and it's how they develop from the neck up as a player in the game, and at what pace they do that. Because I think in today's game, if you have that, you can, and the way the game is played now versus back when dinosaurs were roaming around here, is that you can find a way to play the game. You can survive in the game today. It's not where you need to be 6'2" and 240 pounds as much as we like to have those kind of guys. So I think it's more about their development mentally and that preparation. And that's where the juniors and the college coaches and like what Sean was talking about, the American, that's where those guys are so important.
Yep.
To be able to develop those kind of guys and give them a chance to play in the league.
Sean, when you sent us the elite prospects profile of Cameron Schmidt, and we'll get into the other guys in our next segment, but it says he has an A grade. Now, we all understand in a school world, getting an A is a good thing. But what does that mean compared to a B or a C, a Lud's
Not
GPA,
all of us understand.
I mean, we had him as a first round level talent. So that's what an A grade means. We had him as a first round level talent. So just to be clear, like, this is great work by the Stars. This is they got a first round level player with a third round pick value. This is that's what the A grade means there. I think we gave out 32. I think we gave out 30 A grades this year. So he was in our top 30 players in this draft. And you look at kind of the consensus, lots of other places ranked him in this 28 to 35 range as well. So this is a player that is, the size is why he dropped. He's 160 pounds. He is playing at a size and weight that you cannot play in the NHL at as a forward, unless you're at any position. So the question is going to be, can he bulk up? Can he kind of add a bit to his frame? And that's just a big question, and that's why he dropped. So the skills are there. He's a future NHLer skill wise, but can he find a way to kind of cut his teeth and make it in the league? And that's the big question.
Does Wyatt crush 180 pounds? What's Wyatt at?
I'll look it up.
Sam, you know what Wyatt hits the scales at?
I want to say
his,
he was like 190.
Well, whatever
when
it's
I
going to
was
say, I'm going to
freshman.
say it's 5 pounds less.
according to his NHL player page, it says he's 6'1", 185.
Okay, so
Yeah.
and maybe
But
even a
here's-
6'1". I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, but Luds, if Wyatt Johnson is listed at 6'1", and he's listed at 6'1", and let's say he's actually 5'11" or whatever he actually is, Cameron Schmidt is listed at 5'7" and a quarter. So if you're listed at 5'7" and a quarter, and
but my point was that Wyatt is more wiry, right? But my point is that just because you are that stature, look at, again, like what you say, and I think Stankoven is a different kind of 5'5" or 5 foot whatever he is. You know, he's a pinball on skates. Like you just love the way he plays the game. But I guess my thing is you can play and be a good player in this league now.
You can.
And when you look at Wyatt, Wyatt's not out there running people around, but he uses his lack of size in a different way. But it's not like he doesn't get to the front of the net. So it's more about the will and the want, I think, in these players. They find ways.
Up next, we're going to go through the other picks the Stars have already made. We're in the 7th round now. Still have little over 20 picks to go. Dallas will pick at the very end of round 7, their last one. We'll do all that next here on the DLS Day 2 draft show presented by Empire Today.
Stars fans?
This
nope,
is
not
why.
you.
Not me?
Nope, you're in the next one.
No. This
break.
is the only
I
reason
was
I'm here
all
today.
ready
is
to
do
talk
this
about some Bud Light again. Why am I not
the
leading
reason
off
the boys
of Bud Light?
brought me in today was so that we could talk about finances. Finances can be messy and confusing, but Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO. I have no timer, so this is just completely winging it, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. More than just your average budgeting app, Monarch Money is a complete financial command center for all your accounts, investments, and goals, so you can have everything in one place. Don't just manage your money, start building wealth with 50% off your first year for DLS listeners. Start managing the finances and build a life that you actually want, because without a clear picture, you get attacked by bugs in the kitchen in Frisco. With all your accounts, credit cards, and investments in one place, you'll always know where your money stands without the hassle. So track your spending, savings, and investments effortlessly so you can focus on what matters most with Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use the code DLS, monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code DLS.
Perfect, Sam. Well done. Let's talk about game time. The FIFA Club World Cup is underway. We're not in group stage play anymore. I know Sean's into this, even if Luds doesn't have any clue. It is knockout stage. Well, what a great way to go to games in the United States by using Game Time. They have great picks. They have 10% off exclusive zone deals. You can get the best seats. You can make sure that you have 100% guaranteed tickets. You can look at your seat views. You get, of course, last-minute tickets and zone deals where you can save up to 60% off buying for sports, comedy, concerts, theater, even more when you choose a section, and let Game Time choose the seats. Those are the zone deals. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code DLLS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. All right.
What's up, Stars fans? Oh,
not yet. No.
Oh, man.
Boy, he's so eager. Next break. I promise you can talk about Bud Light as long as you want. Sean does not have a lot of time left. Sam has probably about 20 plus picks, because I don't think Jim Nill's going to sprint out of the room right after the final pick, because they're making theirs the 30th pick of the round. So, Sean, let's go through these.
I was kicked out because I was too close to Jim Nill, though. That's why they booted me out of the room. They thought I was going to hear their picks.
No, they didn't. All right, Sean, 4th round pick and beyond. If you wanted to take the reins here, Brandon Gorzinski from the Calgary Hitmen of the WHL with their 4th round pick, and take it away, him and beyond.
Yeah, Gorzinski is a nice value pick. He's, as I think I've alluded to earlier, he projects probably as a AHLer that could turn into a 4th liner in the NHL. Maybe he's a really competitive kid with a lot of motor. Someone who if he ever became an NHLer, is someone who will play a style that Luds would like. So that's what Grzinski is. The fifth round, the two fifth round picks, we go to Scandinavia, right? And we got the one Finn who I'm going to mispronounce, but Adioki played this year for the U20 level for Luke. For Luco, played for Luco at the U20 level. Another kind of hardworking bottom six potential center guy who we kind of looked at him as someone who gets a little bit more out of his frame than he probably should, and works out. And then after that, you had the best name in the draft, a Swedish goalie by the name of Måns, and the name is great. Amongst the goalies we looked at, I probably had him about 14 or 15th amongst the goalies, and I handle our goalie scouting over at Elite Prospects. And so 6'5" goalie who was fine, but never was kind of stuck behind another goalie at the U20 level when it came to international appearances. And so when I've watched him live, he either played against bad teams or he was the backup. And then when I watched him on video, it was kind of, he's a project. He's a 6'5" project who, because of his size and some of his athleticism, he'll get an opportunity. I just be interesting to see how far he goes. And then, honestly, the kid they took in the 6th round, Dawson Sharkey, I had no idea they existed. But yeah, you only have so much bandwidth, and we didn't have him in our guide. We have 350 plus players in our guide, and we rank 160 of them, and that's kind of a good example of how different teams have different lists and everything like that. So whoever the Stars have scouting the queue right now, they must have really liked Dawson Sharkey's game, because that's typically how these 6th and 7th round picks go. So just telling as I know and what I know on him.
The question I had for you, Sean, about the goalie who is named Måns, and I don't know if I'm saying it properly, he is Swedish with the little tiny O accent over the A in his first name. This is sort of what you were talking about, though, is make sure you take a goalie in these later rounds, maybe take 2 or 3, because you never know, right? You talk about skaters being developed, Luds, after 18, 19, 20. Goalies can take even longer, and shouldn't you be doing this every single year, multiple picks, just to see what kind of stable you can come up with?
Yeah, that's what I wrote about this at DLS earlier in the week, where I think the league is too well scouted now, where any player taken after the 4th round the chances of them playing at the NHL is probably closer to 0% than it is to 2%. And so at least for a goaltending perspective, there's a high variance, and we don't know how. It's a position that's so mental. You don't know how it's going to evolve and everything. So I don't mind if I'm a team, I would just take 2 or 3 goalies in my last couple picks, because there's at least I'm throwing some more darts at a position where maybe something develops where I think players are too well scouted now. But I'm going to let you guys finish the show. I might join you back later. I've got an agent about to call me about something here, so I got to run. But this has been fun, and I'll text Elijah if I'm back in. Live
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. We got about a 35, 40 minutes left here on our show. So, Sam, as we now turn to you, because we're going to lose you shortly anyway. Any scuttlebutt as you guys were covering day 2 of the draft over at Comerica Center?
No, nothing really going on. Just waiting to see if there was any sort of, and I'm still waiting for that trade of actual players to go down in this draft. Pretty much every trade other than I think Timmins was just a pick swap. So there was some hope there'd be a trade in there that maybe involved this team to make it a little more interesting. But just to piggyback, one thing I did like, I don't know if Sean said it because I came in a few minutes after, but with this Schmidt guy, one thing I think Luds will like, obviously you guys already talked about most of it, but he finds the right place to go. He's one of those players that I watched a ton of his highlights and game clips and things like that. He's always in that spot. He's always finding that soft area in the ice, whether it's for getting a shot off and getting open for a teammate, or whether it's getting there to be in the right spot for a rebound. He's the classic hockey IQ kind of guy that knows not to just crash into the crease for a rebound, but to sit back a little bit and be that second man in and get that loose rebound, similar to Jason Robertson in that way. So I do like that pick. And then for me, the biggest takeaway so far of this draft are the names of some of these picks. I mean, the Stars now have a shark, a moose, a goose, an otter. I mean, what else do we need to build here? We need to get a llama, maybe some other camels, things like that, to really build out the full zoo of this Dallas Stars roster.
A lot of DLLS shirts coming up.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, look at that.
Going. There you go, right there. There's the goose.
That's the goose.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's from his agent Alan Walsh.
Looks like a swan.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, both of you. What do you think about to me, the biggest trade of the day was John Gibson going from the Anaheim Ducks to the Detroit Red Wings for Peter Mrazek, a 2027 second round. That's 2 drafts from now. And then a 4th round pick in 2026, which is next year. So a 2nd, a 4th, and Mrazek for Gibson.
I think that when it comes to Gibson, there will be questions about his health. That'll be the first thing. He's been a goaltender, but a great goaltender in that. And I think the other question is
he's 31 now.
Did he ever want to play for a team that had an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup? Because he was just kind of in that California living the dream kind of life there. And so, and I think for Steve Yzerman in Detroit, they've run through 4 or 5 goaltenders now, and they haven't had a ton of luck. And I think what Stevie is looking at is where his team is at. I think he feels like they're knocking on that door about being a playoff team that can contend, and get into some later rounds. And I think when you bring in Gibson with the miles on him, with some injuries behind him, and see how he can do. So there was a lot of talk.
He came, talking about playing for a good team. He came in to the league and to Anaheim and really emerged as the Ducks. No, pardon the pun. The dynasty of the Ducks was fading.
Was sinking.
Yeah. They were one of the powerhouses for a decade plus, but they were not when so he's sort of been, as they've gone towards a rebuild and now into and trying to come out of one.
I guess if there's, of the things that I said, I think the biggest surprise to me is I thought Edmonton would have pulled something off for him. I thought that's where Edmonton would kind of be the leader in that, just because of, the whole Skinner thing and up, down and all that kind of stuff. That the Oilers getting to a certain point and having goaltending let them down at certain points in a series and in a game. So I thought that's where all the talk was going, was that direction, and it wasn't. And so somehow Yzerman said, no, we want him over here on this side of the league. So, and again, I just think that Yzerman has been, I think he's taken criticism as a general manager over
a lot
these
more
years.
lately.
Yeah, it's, because nothing's really happened for him, and I think he's a patient guy, because he was a player that didn't crash onto the scene either. It took Yzerman time to get to be as good as he was, and a Hall of Famer and everything else. And so I think that's where there's a little bit longer rope. Plus you've got you got Kane there and things like that.
When you played against him, what made him so good?
Well, you could just tell that I think that
Yzerman, that is,
he wasn't obviously not a big guy to play against, but he played bigger than what he was. He never quit. He never quit on plays. There was always a fight in him. Not a Dougie Gilmore kind of guy, but there was he scored big goals, timely goals. He's a great hockey player. But I think it was his leadership came more without being in the room and listening to him. It seemed like it came more from the way that he led by his play and the plays that he made and the way he would compete. And sometimes those kind of players become the leaders because they're outside of maybe their size. And he would go into battles but then he had some guys that could back him up too at the time. So I just think that the way he went about it, and again, I think obviously one of the reasons is going to be the way he was as a leader in the room, which I don't know much about.
Sam, I'm laughing to myself because we waited until Sean left, who covers the Red Wings locally in Detroit, for us to bring up the trade. But you're also a big goalie guy. Do you think John Gibson still has some magic left in the tank?
Yeah, I do. And I think the biggest thing I thought as soon as this happened, this saga has been going on forever, right? John Gibson rumored to be traded. Will the Ducks get rid of Gibson? Because of what you guys just said, that team has been sinking and fully rebuilding for a while now. It's just interesting to me that, and I know Luds feels the same way because we talked about it a bunch this year, that why wouldn't Gibson want to go somewhere else? And the rumors were always, will Gibson get traded? He's on the top of the trade target boards every year. And then it's, I want to stay here. I'm happy here. And the question wasn't just why, because his team wasn't good, but if you watch the Ducks, they just got absolutely swarmed, and he would take on 35, 40 shots a game in a lot of their games. I remember one game against Dallas, he got pulled after the first or second period because he was just exhausted.
It was like 35, 40 shots by then through two.
Yeah, because of fatigue. Like that's the kind of team they've been forever. So I think personally, not that Detroit is, he's not going to Florida here, but it's a step up. And I think the health of John Gibson has a lot to do with the fact that he was taking on so much on his own and taking on those heavy shot loads. He was playing a ton, and he's playing in front of a team that didn't defend very well at all. So for me, I think that Detroit has been looking for a goalie to kind of build around. Not that, Gibson's not 21 years old anymore, but it is a goalie you can kind of start to say, we have a guy who can be our guy for a little bit here. Let's build this team up and have a solid goalie. So I think that was the key there. And for Anaheim, they're kind of throwing in the towel here in terms of being any good anytime soon. When Kreider got traded there, I thought, here we go, they're going to try to do something here, and then they just got rid of everybody else on the team. And it's like, who is Kreider going there to build up and teach?
Let's debate that. Luds is dying to talk about Bud Light because I want to talk to you a little bit more before you have to go about that. I'm not sure if I totally agree. We'll talk about that next year on the DLS Day 2 Draft Show. Now.
I'm good to go now.
You can go for as long as you can possibly go.
Close to happy hour. What's up, Stars fans? Well, it's over. The draft is over. The 7 rounds are done. You heard the superstars that are coming here in the next few years. Can't wait to see them. Enjoying the game should be easy, so don't overthink it. What to wear? Hopefully you still have those Stars jerseys and you have them, throw them on the road or anything like that when they didn't make it to the finals this year. Not sure of what to serve your friends? That's even easier. Pick up some pizza and grab some Bud Light and stock up that fridge. It's going to be a long summer. See, it's that easy, just like Bud Light, which is always brewed with 4 simple ingredients for a clean, crisp taste. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy, but remember, we do it responsibly. Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Boy, Luds, you were so excited.
I just wanted to get it over with.
That's okay. Our presenting sponsor today is Empire Today, and let's talk about them for a minute for today's draft show, day 2, which, by the way, Lud said it's over. It's not quite.
We're over.
Deep into, we have got about 15 picks to go. We're halfway through, well, a little past halfway in round 7. Empire Today, just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You can pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. See how it looks with your furniture in your house, which is extremely convenient. Plus, you get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered, so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing, plus you can schedule installation as soon as the next day because nobody likes to wait. Even Sam's waiting right now. He doesn't like to wait. He wants it now. So schedule your free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. DLLS listeners can receive a $350 discount using promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard right. A $350 discount with code DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DLLS for full details.
Hey, how fast can you pull up Anaheim's record since John Gibson got there?
What's that?
Anaheim record since Gibson got there.
Like the whole team?
Yep.
I can do that pretty quickly.
Just their team, their wins, losses, whatever. And while you're pulling that up, when no one tells you that, here's why everybody wants John Gibson. So his career stats, and not a great team, are 204 wins, 217 losses, almost 500, right? He's got a 2.9 goals against average, career this is, and a 9.10 save percentage. Those are some damn good numbers for a guy that hasn't, had a real strong supporting cast. So,
Luds, I'm going to go from 2014-15 through the present because he played 3 games and let's not count that as a full year. The Anaheim Ducks, since he came in, as far as points, have the 23rd best record. Let's go point percentage. 509. That is 25th out of 33 teams because the Coyotes were part of that as well. But essentially, they are a bottom third NHL team during his career.
And he's got top 5 numbers. I mean, a 9-10 career save percentage, 2.9 goals against. You know, I don't know if that's top 5, but at least top 10, I'm guessing.
I'll take a quick look as we go through here from that span. So basically the last 11 seasons, as far as wins for a team that's not been good, he's 14th out of 6 pages worth of goalies that have played.
Yeah.
But he's a top 15 goalie in wins. Think about that. Over a 11-year period with his team being one of the not winning teams in the league.
And the other thing about Gibson going to another team and being in Detroit, obviously, Sean, we can all talk about this, is that is a motivated fan base. You know, I mean, you're going into a hockey market. And I think that for him to now go play there where there are expectations and he can play in that environment, I think that brings something out of him too. And again, I hope that for his sake, he stays healthy and he provides what they're looking for.
Sam, to get back to
don't forget,
that,
he was before that. I was just going to say before this year and those things, John Gibson was a big name in the USA goalie conversation. He was up there probably above Jake Ottinger a couple of years ago, and now his name isn't even mentioned when they're talking about who it is because of how deep it is. But he's got that capability, and I'm excited to see exactly what Lud said. Excited to see him play, not in front of a great team, but a team that believes they can take that next step and get closer, if not into a playoff spot.
And you know, Sam, I believe, I don't know if he's got a full no move, but he had a no move clause in there, and so he just never. There were other opportunities. He's lots of times that apparently they've come to him, and he just never wanted to leave. And I think that the organization was coming to him out of respect and saying, "Listen, this is what we're going to be like in the next few years. So if you want to go and we can find a place that you can go in." I think they have a ton of respect for what he's done and been loyal to that organization. And then, I think that he's looking at it. It's time. It's time for me to. I don't even know what his age is. What is his age?
Who?
Gibson.
31.
Same guy we've been talking about.
I wanted to make sure. I was just sending him a message.
Yeah,
I
so
wanted to
he's
make sure.
31 years
Well,
old.
To Sam's thing, saying, well, it looks like maybe they don't want to contend. They took a huge jump. They just hired a championship coach in Quenneville. They got rid of Gibson, and Trevor Zegras. But I'm not sitting here saying they're giving up. Actually, I disagree with that. They want to make the playoffs this year. I think, Sam, they believe in Lucas Dostal, their young goalie.
That's why.
Dostal and Mrazek together is a fine tandem.
Yep.
I think that Zegras was a piece that the management, your buddy Verbeek, did not necessarily feel fit well with what they're doing. They just got another good young pick in their first round. And I think the Ducks want to make the playoffs this year.
It'll be interesting to see how Zegras does in his next stop because there's a little more accountability coming his way. And I think Trevor Zegras had a super skilled player, right? I mean, the whole Michigan and everything else that he did. It just and having Pat Verbeek as a coach, as a general manager, not necessarily his cup of tea if you're not playing the right way. So now we'll find out what he can do at his next stop.
So let's talk about the Stars have still not made their pick for the last part of this round. It's funny, as we get into the 7th round, I thought they were going to go, these last 10, 20 picks would go fast.
Well, I thought
and they haven't. Sean sent me this, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this because there's a bunch of things now coming out about the new CBA negotiations. According to Renaud Lavoie up in Quebec, in the new NHL CBA taking place in 2026, so there's one more year, and then the new CBA starts in 26-27, I believe, is the new extension they're talking about. Fitness testing will no longer be permitted during training camp or during the season. What do you think about that as an ex-player? What does fitness testing do for your evaluation of an NHL hockey player?
Nothing. Does nothing. I mean, all it does is it shows that you put the work in the summer. It doesn't really have anything. Yep. That's what I was saying earlier. You can have the best pull-ups and sit-ups, and you can do the 3 mile in 8 minutes if you want, and it has nothing to do with playing hockey. So, and that's always been our complaint. The whole VO2 thing, and you got the tubes going into your mouth and plugging your nose up, and you got to be on that windmill, that bike, and all that stuff. And the smartest thing I felt that they ever did is they actually allowed you at one point, whether they do it now at all, is you could get on that treadmill and you could use rollerblades. which was a little bit more like you're skating.
Like skating, right?
Yeah, you know. And
well, now they actually have skating treadmills where you can use your real skates.
Well, those are nice. They're
I've never
great.
used one. Have you?
Oh man, it's more for training. I mean, it's hard. I mean, you're not plexiglass,
the
but
synthetic.
Yeah, the synthetic
material.
ice, but I mean, it's like plastic. I mean, it's like skating through mud. But yeah, the fitness testing, you know, and again, we through my career, so many guys would come in and you'd see them and they'd be specimens, you know, and then all of a sudden they get on the ice and, you know, I mean, they could be big and strong and all that other kind of stuff. And when they could be like Bambi sometimes when they were on the ice. And so, you know, and I'm happy to hear it. You know, I don't think it'll change anybody's how they go about their business. So these kids all stay in shape now. So I don't think, and I think that might have something to do with it. You know, they're not concerned. I don't think that the fitness testing was like, man, if we don't have this stuff, they're all going to come in and out of shape. That's not the way they train. These guys now, you know, I complain it all the time. And we're taking a sport from a kid standpoint, and you know, we have with our 18s, our 16s, 15s, and 14. I mean, you're turning it into an 11-a-month year game. I've always been a little bit against that. We don't know if these players at some point could be a baseball player or a football player or a soccer player or something like that. God forbid a soccer player. But my thing is like we turn them into one sport athletes. And it's just because and a lot of them, you can't say it's on them and on coaches because they want as much ice as they can get.
And Luds, you were not a one sport athlete back in the day. And I, to this day, am a staunch proponent of not specializing too early for all the reasons that you can come up with, whether it's burning out the specific muscle sets as far as
just mentally for me.
There's mental burnout. There's burning out if you're with the same coaches and parents and teammates, even if they're great. Everyone needs a break, right? Which is why Luds is leaving us and doing stuff remote for a month and a half or two, because even he needs to get away from us. There's also the worry about injuries. If you overload certain muscle groups too quick or too much too early, it can lead to injuries and all that other stuff. So, Sam, is there anything else that stood out to you today? To me, the only other trade that I thought was worth really noticing, because there were a bunch of pick swaps and stuff, but it was the trade with Pittsburgh sending Connor Clifton and Connor Timmins going the other way. Is Connor Clifton went to the Penguins from the Sabres, along with a second-round pick for Connor Timmins and Isaac Beliveau.
I'm curious if you guys are surprised at all that there weren't more. I think that's the takeaway. Like that's a trade that's the biggest trade because it's the only one that really involves any active players. But I'm just curious if you guys thought, because I feel like what was the big trade last year? Wasn't there a big trade last year during last year's draft?
Sure, maybe. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
But maybe
I was about as
ago.
interested in that trade last year, Sam, as I am this draft this year.
Yeah, I just figured, with maybe it's the decentralized part of it. Maybe you don't have as many GMs able to just walk around and kind of hear people out. I'm sure Jim knows upstairs here on the phone nonstop, but it's a different environment where you can't just kind of walk over and say, let's see what Detroit's thinking over here. Hey, you guys are thinking about doing this. What if we threw this in? It takes away from that aspect. And we're just harping on why we didn't like this way of doing it. But I'm a little bit surprised there weren't at least more conversations. I didn't see a ton of Elliot Friedman saying that these two teams are talking. The only thing I've seen is Vegas and Marner kind of trying to maybe figure something out, which we already knew. So that's the biggest takeaway I have for any trade, is that there weren't more of them. And I wish there were, especially while we were sitting there for 4.5 hours last night.
Luds, you and I were talking about this upstairs as we were waiting to get our show going today, about that very point of decentralized versus having everybody in person. And I think this has been a detriment to having GMs work together and make more deals.
It seems like that's the popular opinion with all of this going on. And I was listening to one guy this morning, and a great point is that for these kids at 17, 18 years old that get drafted, that picture when they are able to walk up on stage and get the jersey, put the jersey on the hat, but then most importantly, stand with the GM and the coach and the scouts and things like that, and to be able to have that picture with those guys for the rest of their lives, it's a moment that they all look forward to. It was different than when I was. It didn't seem like it was such a big deal, but now it's so important to these kids to be part of that. And you watch, who was it last night? First round, I think it was the last player picked, and he was crying.
Yeah.
That's how important. It was last pick, 30 or 32, whatever it was.
See, I can look that up for you.
But that's how important that is to these kids. So And again, the whole
Was it
atmosphere.
Cullen Potter from Arizona State?
No, I don't think it was Potter. I don't think it was Potter.
Do you remember? It wasn't the LA Kings
so
kid,
it wasn't
was
it wasn't the last pick then, because Potter went last, right?
Potter
No,
was 32nd.
it was one of the last 4.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
Mason West, who's the kid
Was
that
it a
plays
Montreal
football,
jersey or Carolina? It just seemed like it was a red jersey. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, you
could have been Chicago, Mason West with Chicago.
I think that was it.
He's the one from
That's
Minnesota
it.
High School that
That's
plays
it.
football as
Yep,
well.
that's
Yep.
it. But yeah, like
He's the
those
6'7" kid that's huge.
Yeah, that moment right there, like he couldn't even look at the camera. He was
Yeah.
so but that moment I think is so important. And again, the first time I've never seen anything like this. I mean, everything that I've heard today, they won't be doing this again. But
it seems likely that they'll go back to the old format. I think.
Yeah, even because we were talking about it. Somebody, when all these general managers are in the same room, and I see you talking to the guys from Chicago, and you get up and start to head back, and we got the next pick. I would, you can step up and catch that guy, catch that GM, and say, hey, you guys thinking about moving that? I think more can happen there. So,
and Nil is known for having a really good read of the room, knowing all the things that are going on. Very good, even for NHL GM standards, of really having his finger on the pulse for that. Sam, we're not done yet. We've got 4 picks to go. Carolina's on the clock. We haven't lost you quite yet.
Want me to read the Bud Light ad? Read again, Sam?
Stars are on the clock. Okay. Don't go anywhere just quite yet. We haven't lost Sam quite yet here on DLLS.
I'll stay till after the pick.
Let's talk about being a DLS diehard. We mentioned at the top of the show, but $36 for the first year. The Make Your Move sale is on right now. Look below Sam. You can see that QR code. Scan that. That'll take you to alldls.com/intro, the introductory offer. A huge discount, just $36 for your first year as a DLS diehard. You get a sweet t-shirt. You can go with one of these. This is the Stars Colors diehard shirt. They have them in Stars, Mavs, Rangers, the Cowboys, even if that's your thing. Charlie Paquette, right winger, is the Stars' 7th round pick. Anyway, as we continue the diehard read, you get all the writing that Sam does, that Sean does, that we have from the Cowboys, the Rangers, the Mavs. We've got, of course, the Cowboys Vegas trip coming up in November. So if you are a DLS diehard, you get 20% off events in addition to all the great things we offer. You've seen some of the shirts. Sign up for the DLS newsletter as well, because you get daily access to that. But check out these shirts. There's Wyatt Johnston's 16-bit, Mikko Rantanen, the finisher. Oh, boy, I love the Finnish Mafia one. That's one of my favorites. The Jake Ottinger shirt I was wearing yesterday for the draft, that's a really good-looking one. Of course, you have the Moose. You've got Jamie Benn, the captain one. All sorts of phenomenal shirts. Even the old one, the Mike Modano 16-bit one, was one of our initial ones. And John showed us last night, I don't know if Elijah has the Cooper flag captured shirt, the new, there it is. Look, he does. Boy, Elijah is on his game today. That shirt, Cooper flag, is now a Dallas Maverick, and you can celebrate that if that's your fancy. So lots of things to go there. And, of course, Sam, we may be headed to free agency, but you'll be writing plenty on the DLS site for them to want to be a diehard to be able to read that.
Sam's not with us.
Sam
anymore.
doesn't have anything to add to that. He was happy to let me do it. So that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure
I wrote an
to be a
article
today.
I wrote an article today. Go read it.
You want to tell anybody why they should read it?
Yeah, it's I was looking at why, if the Stars have gotten any better yet, and if they even can this summer. Kind of what we talked about a little bit last night. I got a text. Jim is going to talk, so I'm going to go.
All right,
Read
Sam,
my
thank
article.
you very much.
I love you guys.
Appreciate it. We'll talk to you Monday.
See ya.
All right, Luds, I've got a couple things for you. Before we get to the Jim Nill audio from last night, which I want to play for you about the coaching search and a couple things, Elliot Friedman with a couple of tweets in the last couple hours. One of them was something to keep an eye on and off this week. Toronto and Vegas have been discussing the possibility of a sign and trade involving Mitch Marner. Of course, he had been linked with the possibility of the Stars. Likelihood of it happening, hard to say, says Elliot, but talks have occurred and continue to do so. And then he followed up with, I believe Nick Waugh will be going to Toronto if this gets done. What do you think about Vegas finds a way to get their guy? They got Jack Eichel in that big move with Buffalo a couple years ago. They got Tomas Hertl in a surprise move at the deadline. What do you think? Apparently, Vegas also made an attempt, according to Elliot, to get Rasmus Anderson this week, but they could not get it done from Calgary.
Is the salary cap stuff going into playoffs start this year, this coming season? It's next season, right?
I would have to look in the
I think
LTI.
it's not this year. So they have one more year
to make that
of
play.
circumventing. Well, it's not circumventing because it's
legal.
there.
Yeah,
but there
available.
will be a cap in the playoffs. So again, yeah, I mean, if they can get Toronto to sign Marner and then then they move him. I mean, obviously it makes sense for both teams, and there's a reason Vegas is doing it. So again, it usually comes down to dollars, right? I mean, that's usually what this thing is all about.
It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out, plus a lot of other things. Let's get into what Jim Nill had to say last night. We have some audio for you. And let's start with the coaching search as he gave an update last night. Mike Heika, Taylor Baird were up in Frisco where Sam is now. He's going to speak in just a few minutes. We'll talk about that if he says anything today on Monday's show. But here's what Jim had to say about where the Stars head coaching search is at last night.
Really no update. We're still in the process. It's been a real good process. We're still interviewing people, and we're getting it narrowed down. And I'd like to get buttoned up here. I'm not going to put a time frame on it, but you got July 1st coming. There's a lot of work to be done, and whoever is going to be the coach, and it's going to have to hire some staff, as we've seen. We've had some people leave for different reasons and stuff. So lots of work to be done. So something I'd like to get buttoned down as soon as we can, but I'm not going to rush it just for the sake of a deadline.
When I was listening to that again this morning, I listened to it a couple of times. The first time I said, boy, he didn't really say a whole lot. But then it kind of sounded like he was suggesting that he'd like to have it done before free agency. But then he kind of capitulated, said, well, a lot of things to do and we're not rushing it, which is what he said before.
Which at least when you say it like that, and you don't say I want it done before free agency, and it doesn't happen, he goes back to Mando. So now he kind of leaves that open.
Yes.
But, I mean, a couple things that he says there, he says them in different ways. That, I'm not going to rush it, and we're in no hurry kind of thing. And he doesn't have to be, because there's nobody else out there that's looking for another coach right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so
he's not under any competition for speed.
Yeah. And so I think that, and again, there's probably, I would guess that knowing, if you would have known how this whole thing was going to shake out with Pete, that there might have been a couple of other veteran kind of coaches that you would like to come in, but that's not the way it works. So there is no rush, and then none of those guys are going anywhere, whoever you're talking to. And, we heard it was down to Graham and Gully, and maybe there's somebody else in the mix, or maybe he's just circling back to somebody else, which is nice to be able to give a general manager not to be under the gun, because you'll go back and you'll sit with your guys and you'll talk and you go, what was that one comment he made about this? And let's revisit that, and let's bring them back in, because they're all going to be okay. And you don't have to worry. Like I said, they're not going anywhere, right? And so we can bring them back in. They'll come back in for a second or even a third interview if they like.
And because they had the draft yesterday and today, which just wrapped up, it's all done, because they have free agency coming up on Tuesday, there could be this sort of, I don't want to call it rush to judgment, because you feel like you're pressured into a deadline. I do think if you're trying to deal with some free agency things, and if there are a couple of holes in your roster you want to fill, knowing the coach and having their input is a valuable thing to have.
I would want my coach's input.
Yes.
And as a coach, I would want to give you input, because part of their conversations, I'm sure, I would hope that what kind of system do you plan on playing? And, in all three zones, how do you play and defend and forecheck and all these other kind of things? And so when it does come to free agency, and I don't know if there's really a big list out there this year like there has been when it comes
for the Stars.
I'm talking about for free agents.
Yeah,
like it's not, there's not that one guy. I mean, maybe Marchand is still kind of out there that people might be interested in.
Listen to what Pete said about Dallas Pete. I'm sorry, that was a Freudian slip
Get
there.
That Freudian slip.
How about Jim? What he said about
three-time GM winner.
3 in a row.
Yeah, you might want to get his name right.
The Stars' approach to July 1st this year as opposed to some previous years. He said this last night.
July 1st, you got to be careful. It can be a dangerous time. It's not one of those years where we're going to be chasing a lot of big names. We made a lot of our decisions were made during last year a little bit. When you had a Mikko Rantanen, You had we signed Wyatt Johnson, we signed Jake Ottinger, Esa Lindell. So a lot of those decisions were made during the year. And part of that reason was so that we didn't have to get in the situation where you got to sign certain things too. So a lot of that was taken care of during the year. Now, there's still the moves we have to make. We know that. But a lot of that work was done during the season also.
So
that's a polite so that's a polite way of saying there's not a lot out there. And I think the other thing that
and
he's
there's not a lot of room
do,
for them to do anything.
But
with.
what he's going to do, I think what they're so where they're at as far as having the dollars work out, what is available to you right now, and knowing how Jim goes about his business, and he is not the guy to rush down the hill, right? And I think they think things through around here. What it tells me is they are going to do what they can do, but they'll be looking to do things deadline.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the trade deadline.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I hope, I always hope that they do it more like Jimmy Rutherford does than every other general manager. And what I mean by that, Rutherford, his MO seems to be to get out in front of it. When he sees what it is, he's not
waiting till the deadline.
He's not waiting till March 1st, whenever that deadline. Let's say it's March 1st. I mean, he's on this thing in February, the middle of February. And so he'll find, or he seems to target the player that he thinks can help his team, so that you don't get into those last 2 days and last 46 hours, and now it's 30 hours, and then you're kind of going back and forth. He tries to get it dialed in and get it done with, and I like that, because then you get them in also earlier, and you're not going to be 15 games before the playoffs start. And the sooner you have your target of what, because you've already got, let's say you've got 60 games in now. You know where your weaknesses are. You know what you're looking at.
Well, that's your number, right? That's your Paul Maurice number.
That's my number. Well, his number was 62.
Yep.
But, you kind of know. I mean, I think they're going to know within the first 20 games of the season right now, and then they're going to start looking in different areas. I think they're always looking. I mean, you're always looking.
Listen to this, too. This was the other thing.
The event has ended.
Thank you. I'll turn that off. We don't have that distracting us, because you know how you love distractions. Listen to the other clip I had from Jim Nill about where his roster construction is right now.
Yeah, actually the roster's kind of coming together maybe a little better than we thought. It's kind of, things have fallen in place, so we're happy that way. Now, I know some things that you guys don't know, so but it's things that come together pretty good. There'll still be some work to do, but we're just going through it methodically here. Making some decisions, and July 1st, you don't know where things are going to go. We're going to monitor that. So we'll just see what the process is.
Think about that. The roster's coming together. He knows some things that we don't know. Obviously,
I think he said coming together pretty well.
Yeah. There are some things he hasn't released, or maybe they haven't signed off on or whatever. But that perks the ears up a little bit.
If you believe it all.
Yeah.
Just kind of like all the coaches are going to be here too. That I don't
believe. Yeah, he left it open that way. So.
Yeah, I think that kind of leaves it open too.
I would imagine
we don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's coming together pretty well. Well, who are you talking about? Like, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not signing anybody. We've already talked about some of the guys from the minors that may be able to come in and fill some holes, and what that may or may not look like as far as the team goes. So I just think you're in one of those spots, right? He's in one of those spots. You didn't have a lot of picks early, and that's because you've been so damn good for the last 3-4 years.
And they've been going for it.
What it is.
Taking those swings at the deadline.
You cannot fault him for that.
No.
Because when the window's open, the window's open. When
you either go for it or you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I give Jim a ton of credit for that, and apparently the voters do too.
Last thing I wanted to do was give you a couple examples, because we talked about how the draft nowadays, and let's go back to 2017. That was the Miro Otter Robo draft. Okay. How you just aren't finding later round picks, right? So Nico Hischier was first overall. He's played 527 games for the New Jersey Devils, right? Cale Makar was fourth. Miro was third. Miro's played 475 games. Makar's at 395. You get the point. The big guys have played anywhere from 300 to 500 games or so. If you go past the second round, there's only 5 players that have played over 100 games. One of them, Stuart Skinner, by the way. He was a third-round pick. Go to the fourth round. There's a couple, okay? 4 or 5. Fifth round, 2. Sixth round, 2. 0 in the seventh round, okay? So it's starting to get really slim of guys play significant NHL games. Now I'm going to fast forward to the other draft that's been really big for the Stars, 2021. Of course, 2021. Wyatt Johnston. He's played 246 games for the Stars. That's one of the higher totals. A bunch of guys have played anywhere from, in the first round, from 100 to 250 or so, with Wyatt being right up near the top of that list. If you get past the second round, Luds, the highest third rounder in that draft has played 21 games. That's Ryan Winterton with the Seattle Kraken. Emil Lilleberg with the originally the Arizona Coyotes. I believe he now plays for Tampa Bay. He's played over 100. He was a fourth rounder. Fifth, sixth, seventh. Only one player in the sixth or seventh round has played any games in the NHL so far. And I know that 2021 is not as far over. The point is that you get past those first couple, 2-3 rounds, it gets slim really fast. That's not to say that these guys can't make it to the NHL, but the odds get very, very small now. It used to be there were diamonds in the rough that you'd find every year. Yep. Joe Pavelski's of the world. They're
Jamie
becoming
Klinger,
farther and farther, harder to find. Thank you, Elijah.
He's getting there.
He's on it. He's learning it. But that was my last point. We're about to wrap things up. These draft picks, and we get excited, right? The Stars picks today, Cameron Schmidt in the third round, Brandon Gorzinski in the fourth, Ate Yoki, I hope I'm saying his name right, in the fifth round, Mons Goose in the fifth, Dawson Sharkey in the sixth, and Charlie Packett in the seventh. Boy, Luds.
I was just going to say, after everything you just rattled off, before you just read those guys' names, good luck, guys.
Good luck, guys. That's it.
Good luck.
We'll see. So, for Craig Ludwig, for Elijah Smith, for Sean Shapiro, Sam Nestler, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us on our Day 2 draft coverage. We will be live on Monday at 2 o'clock Central Time. We will be all over the globe because we're moving around
unknown.
Different spots as we get ready for free agency. But the show must go on. We'll have 4 shows next week, off on the 4th of July. We'll do Luds from Wisconsin for a while.
Somewhere.
But guess what? We'll get some video maybe of him cutting down trees, and we'll show you that right here on DLLS. Have a great weekend.
We all silly like the mayor.